All right, let's talk about the Raiders, who, unfortunately for the Raiders, it's the best time of the year for them. It's the offseason, right? I mean, it feels like that's how you have viewed these past few years. It's been very disappointing. It was at least, I think, fun in Derek Carr years. It's been kind of a rough patch here, but potentially some ways to move forward. So let's talk about where they're at right now and how they can get back to being a playoff team and winning playoff games again, because they haven't won a playoff game in 23 years now. So let's get into it. First, let's look at where they're at in terms of PFF grades. This is where they ranked in each PFF position, which again, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but we can just use it as an example. Passing was 31st, and that's one thing that you're going to have to improve upon. How do you improve upon it? They're picking 6th overall. Is that enough to get a quarterback? Could you trade up to get a quarterback? I don't know. It's a discussion we'll have in this video, right? Receiving and pass blocking and run blocking, honestly, were fine. PFF was not crazy about the backfield, 32nd in rushing. But while there are improvements to be made in all of the offensive supporting cast, this is not an awful offensive supporting cast. If you can fix the quarterback position, this could be okay. The defense, run defense was 12th. Pass rush was somehow 27th, even with Max Crosby. So the rest of the team has to figure that out. Max Crosby, obviously one of the best players in the league. Coverage ranked 32nd. That's not going to get it done, and that's why they are picking 6th, and honestly could have been picking higher had they dropped a couple games late in the season. Here is the good news for the Raiders. The good news about not being that much of a, sometimes we have these teams like the Cleveland Browns who, despite picking 2nd overall and don't seem to have much talent, also have no cap space. At least the Raiders aren't paying players for, to be bad for them, right? The players they're paying are pretty good, and the ones that they're not paying aren't very good, but they're not paying them, so it's okay. So you're in a situation right here where you have $93 million in cap space. That jumps up to $179 million next year. So they have money to spend. Now, you don't want to spend yourself out of a good situation or out of an opportunity. You got to make sure you still make smart deals, but they could add some pieces, and it makes you wonder, is a quarterback one of those pieces? Do they go after Sam Darnold? It's a decision you can make, because with Darnold, you now have a good offense. You can kind of pump the rest of your resources into defense. It's an option on the table. Worth mentioning with their draft capital as well, they have their own 7 picks. Those are good picks, and then they also have an extra 3rd-round pick. Remember, the Jets traded for Devontae Adams midway through the season, right? The Jets who traded to add talent in the middle of the season, despite picking top 10 in the draft. Not an ideal move there by them, but hey, the Raiders took advantage. You get the extra draft pick, that helps as well. So they got 8 picks to work with. 4 top 50 picks four top 75 picks, which is always nice. As for their key free agents, now, the number next to these players is how much millions they're projected to get in free agency, and I gotta say, I'm surprised by some of these projections. I mean, Malcolm Kuntz, okay, he's an effective player, but $19 million a year, I know defensive linemen get a lot, I know the cap keeps rising, but I don't know if I'm paying him $19 million a year. That just feels like I'd rather use that money elsewhere. Trevon Moehrig, again, a guy you don't want to let go, but for $15 million a year, is that worth it? Again, good teams don't get great by letting guys walk out the door for nothing, so I don't know. Maybe you franchise tag Moehrig. That might be the move. Keep him for another year. At least you could trade him potentially. Nate Hobbs is only projected to get $4 million. I like him a lot. I'm easily keeping him for that much. You also have Robert Spillane at $8 million, and then a couple of backs, Alexander Madison and Amir Abdullah, $3 million each. I don't know. If you want to keep them, you can, but really they both should be a number 2, not a number 1, I think is how I view that. Again, 32nd ranked rushing game the Raiders had. So those are some issues. So what do we do if we're the Raiders? Like I said, I don't hate this receiving core. Again, Brock Bowers is a guy to build around. You kind of have a core, right? Max Crosby as well. A healthy Christian Wilkins should help out the defense. Like, they have some of the pieces, really what they need to do, and it's kind of simple, but they just need to draft better. Like, that's just what they need. They need a more consistent flow of good talent coming into this roster. The quarterback position, though, is the one where you think about, and to me, again, you could try and nickel and dime this, and at the end of the day, I always feel like for a team that doesn't have a quarterback, there are really 3 options. One is you just swing big in free agency. You get a Sam Darnold. I don't know if Russell Wilson's swinging big, but it kind of is. He'll probably take some monies. So you get one of those guys. The second option is you draft someone early on in the draft. So you trade up and get Shedeur Sanders if he's, or Cam Ward or whoever is available, right? You find a way to get a great quarterback early on in the draft, or a great quarterback prospect, I should say. If you can't do either of those options, or you don't feel like the players that are available to do that are worth it, then what I want to do is go into the season with a plan A and a plan B, which in fairness, they did last year. Aiden O'Connell was kind of their plan. I don't know who was plan A and who was plan B, but Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew were two guys that they felt like, okay, maybe one of these guys hits. Neither one really did, and they said, okay, well, it is what it is. But I like that strategy of if you're going to have no quarterback, that's probably what you have to do. And so, go after I don't know, do you think Zach Wilson maybe can make something work when he's off the Jets? We've seen basically every other quarterback when they leave the Jets play well, so maybe you consider something like that. And then also, like, draft a guy in the third round or something with an extra third round pick and go into the season that way. You don't want to waste a year not even trying at the quarterback position. What do I do? Well, I haven't really done my full draft evaluation. I wouldn't hate the idea of a trade up, but again, are you giving up a future first round pick? Probably, and I don't know if that's worth it unless you really like the prospect. Again, I'm not usually crazy about signing a free agent quarterback. If Sam Darnold's at the right price, I wouldn't hate that as a move. Honestly, I really wouldn't. But I think what I would probably do is, as much as it sucks, I think I just draft best player available at 6, and then I try and, nickel and dime the quarterback position the best I can, go in with 2 options, maybe draft a guy in the 3rd round, maybe just take a couple of young guys in free agency that could be good in the future, try things that way. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the Raiders. Again, it does stink. They're in a bad spot right now, but like I said, the main thing they have to do is they just have to start drafting better. They can't keep having these first round picks where you're like, he's an all right player. Like you need to start hitting on more of these. And again, you think about like Max Crosby was a 4th round pick. Like if they didn't hit on him, where would this team be at? So, but at the end of the day, we'll see what they can do in the Pete Carroll era, who is good at developing players. And that's the other side of things. It's not just drafting, it's developing. Could they get better development now? Maybe these draft picks start to look better just because of the coaching staff. We'll see. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the Las Vegas Raiders. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think they should do this offseason? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.